Yeah, my name is Anthony Finley. Level 10 Fitness is my company, and I have a bunch of strength and conditioning specialists. We have physios that work with us, massage therapists, and we try to do what has come to be known as high performance. What I said at the top there, translating data into training protocols. Now, the next sentence is well, basically the basis of it. It's paramount for our strength and conditioning specialists to be in contact with all the members that you just saw up here, and especially with the coach. So with a complete assessment, it'll create a well-defined direction, and then correct etiology diagnosis will lend to best end goal results. That's really important, and I think Clyde tapped on that very well, which is it's not about the hamstring. We'll touch that later, but a lot of sometimes practitioners, whether they be in my profession or in even physiotherapy and which not, don't go for the reason why it actually happened or the activity. And yeah, next slide, please. Thank you. So what we look at is this: the injury history, the medical history, the physio assessments, and we also need to do a few things. One is consult with the coaches and establish physical and mental traits necessary for success in the sport. And this can vary with positional demands. But if you don't talk to the coach, you're in trouble there. If I am working with my esteemed colleagues here and I don't go and approach the coach and say, what does this athlete need to do better at the sport, then I'm missing a big protocol. Now, what's very important, and we talked about it earlier, is that it is actually about that individual. So whether I can teach them or add in little skills which will help him or her on the field or on the ice or on the court, wherever it is, we'll see. But basically, you have to find out what is needed for that person to be more successful in this sport, and combine that with what you know that they need to be better, either like we talked about, posturally or just the foundation for performance overall. So, yeah, the three most important things that we look at is the assessment of the individual, assessment of the activity, and the length of program. And the reason I wrote that at the bottom is, like, is it sport specific? And thank goodness Wendy talked about that, because it starts off, no, it's not, because it's athlete specific. And that's what we always do. We look at the athlete and what can we do to make them healthy and injury-free, and then what we can do to help them perform better. And because they're great athletes or even average athletes, and that's what they do for their sport, it will transfer. If they become quicker, they'll be able to move more efficiently. If they have a better core, they'll be able to swing the racket quicker, perhaps. So athlete first. That's the back picture there was, you don't have to go back, it's fine. That's Brad Martin winning a bronze at the World Championships there in Rosa. And sometimes when you're dealing with those things, you also look at the sport, and that's been a challenging sport. I started with them after Torino, and there was a culture, and I had to try and contribute to changing the culture on the team while trying to accomplish all the things that we wanted to do, and try and step back too and say, listen, my grade 8 girls have to show up for practice or else they're off the team. This is not right. This is not right. And in any case, it's been a great learning process. I know this year we had 0 injuries. We're the only snow sport team, I believe, that does skiing, ski cross, and snowboarding. Only country, or only team actually, all of ours, half pipe, alpine, and snowboard cross. We didn't have an injury, didn't have a knee injury. We had a wrist and a couple things, but that's quite unique in our sport. Next, please. Good. So what do we look at with the individual there? Physical maturity. You might have a 14-year-old that looks like he's 19, and he might be standing beside a 14-year-old that looks like he's 10. So I have to look at puberty onset, where they are on that stage. Mental maturity goes along with it. There's certain things that we can give certain athletes. Some of the physios that have already told you that they'll give a couple exercises, because as well their scope of being able to absorb something is very important. That has to do with mental maturity, perhaps how we can shape it. The size of the athlete is the same thing. 300-pounders versus 112-pounders. We might find that in a sport like wrestling. You know, we have a big range difference with the structure of the body. Are they an egg on two toothpicks, or are they mesomorph? Previous injuries, what's happened, fatigue factors. If you're dealing with younger athletes, you know they might be playing 2-3 different sports. They might have 15, 20 hours of practice plus a week. Those things come into play with what kind of demands you think you can expect out of them. I look at most programs, and they're designed, if you actually did them, it would take you 3 hours or 2.5 hours. It's not realistic. And I know it's great if you can say, if you know, I work down in Arizona, and I have a performance center, and the athletes are in for 8 hours a day. Well, you can't do those things in real life with most athletes. A, they don't have the finances, and B, it comes into what they're doing. My Olympic athletes is a very good example. I mean, they live off of $18,000 a year and whatever prize money they can win throughout, right? And if they want to be a full-time athlete, they better dedicate some time to doing this part of it. But I also got to factor that in. Well, how much time can I allot for them if we're doing, you know, 2 sessions a day? Like, when's the conditioning? When's the power strength? How long can it be? How long can I keep their attention? Physical disabilities. This actually comes into play a little bit if you're dealing with the Canada Games teams. I remember having swimmers with one limb. You know, I've had a football player played for Boise State, and he went on one arm just down to the elbow, and he was a starting safety in Division I football. Very impressive athlete. So you sometimes you have to incorporate those into the program. Next, please. So once that's done, and you talk to the coaches and you get a good idea, then you can assess the activity. And I've spoken with a few. One of the fellows, he works with the Montreal Canadiens, and I said, so what happens when you have to have an athlete and he needs better footwork? And he said, well, we just trade for one. So I'm like, so what do you do? And he's like, I just get him healthy. Well, what about this or doing that? Well, I can't tell him that. He'll tell me to do this and do that. So you're dealing with different animals, different levels of sport you go through, but to me that would be way too frustrating, because I would like to, I'd like them to respect what I'd say, I guess, first of all, but also I want to be able to make a difference. And obviously that practitioner feels that his difference is getting them back to health, right? But there's also a larger role, I think, as a strength and conditioning specialist. So looking at the activity, velocity, like a shot put versus javelin, power outputs, how much force do you need? Michael Johnson, when he set the 400-meter record, which stood for a long time in Atlanta, I think every step averaged 9 foot 2 or 3 1/4. That's every step around the entire track. It gives you an idea of how much power he is creating on every step. Intensity, frequency of required effort. David alluded this a few years back. If you take that snowboarder I had up there, Brad Martin, their event is they have 2 heats, and it's in half pipe, and it's 15 seconds for each one. And if they make the finals, they do 2 more. So that's 1 minute. And if they're very active on tour and do everything they can, they do 15 shows. None of them do that, but if they would, that's 15 minutes of competition a year. So, and then I always get into some heated discussions at the beginning why they shouldn't be doing, you know, try and hike the Squamish Chief, or climb it twice in one day and like be kayaking for 5 hours. And I said, because your sport might require different needs. And over time I was able to, with some of them, beat that into them. So duration of effort. How long is it needed? It's kind of neat. Right there is Yvette Gonda, one of my girls. She's a 2-time Olympian, and she's only 22 now, so she just did her second one. And their sport just changed. They went to a timing system, and because of this Olympics and because she actually got shafted with the judges being bought off by the Chinese one, who she was going to fight the next round, she ended up losing 2-0 to a girl that she beat quite convincingly, something like 8-0. And there's nothing they could do about it. They tried to protest, didn't happen. So now they have a scoring system where they have, if she taps, you know, the head or the chest, it's automatic. So there's no judge involved. In any case, it's changed the tactics of it as well. Their ring has gone from 10 meters wide to 8 meters. so they don't have as much movement. And so a lot of their attack is set up from a backwards movement. So we do a lot more backwards movement in their sport. So you have to know that and be talking with the coaches to be involved to realize how you need to change things. Recovery periods, just like wrestling, they have a minute between rounds. So why should I have her rest 3 minutes, 5 minutes between exercises if they're really power intensive? I really shouldn't eventually if I'm gearing it towards what she needs it for. Type of movement patterns, is it multi-directional, is it linear? You know, dealing with, had one of our top track cyclists in the other day, and he's been like this for 3 years, and his coaches banned him from being in the gym because his sport when he grew up was wrestling. But because he had such a high VO2 max, they said, you better get into something else, which is kind of good because we don't usually do that kind of thing. It's just steer people towards a sport that they're better suited for. Not like the East Germans used to cut out a section of calf and say, you are going to be a soccer player, right? And however, this fellow, getting him in the gym and having to do some movements, which you can imagine if he's a track cyclist, he has no activation in his scapula, and he's really tight in his TFL, and the fact is just getting opening up and moving in any direction other than this way is going to profit him greatly because he has a sore back all the time. Metabolic system engaged. So, you know, slow twitch, fast twitch, and there's 3-4 different types of fast twitch. There's many different types of aerobic, anaerobic systems you can engage, and all those things are stuff that we get into with the coaches, find out what's best, and talk with other physiologists and things that you learn over time. Thank you, Dane. Last one's length of program. So how long do we program? What are the dates that we have? When do we need to peak and not? And I know we say that, and it's normal, but I don't see people peaking. I don't see them doing it at specific times. And they might say that, but when you have a sport where you're, i.e. hockey, and you're playing 82 games a year, when are you supposed to peak? How do you do that? It's like it's a game of attrition. So the greatest thing, as I talked with Nico's prior, is recovery regeneration. You teach them strategies of recovery regeneration, they can stay fresh throughout the season, so they can actually be effective come when they need to, which is in the playoffs. Then they get bonuses because they get to play more and they get more points. So for us, it's about progressions, especially with different age ranges. And age is part of it. If I have what were we talking about? I had a hockey player in the other day. He might be 24, but his training age is 2 years because all I did was play hockey. A lot of sports are notorious like that. They don't do strength and conditioning. So their training age is 2, yet the person is a full, they might have been professional for 3-4 years already. So you have to take that into consideration with progressions. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean everyone's advanced if they're at a high level of sport. That's what's specific. Location, you have to think about that. I don't know if you look at that picture there. We were in Pukan on the one of the 10 most active volcanoes in the world, and I've got my team, and I'm having to have them peak for a competition in Valle Nevado in a week and a half. What do we do? I've got a slanted backyard. I have nothing there. What do I do? They're staying in other little cabins up there, so they're doing some kind of plyo push-ups where the partner behind's put them to the ground. They're doing sprinting in 2s up a road. Do you know why I would have them go 2 at a time? Yeah, they'll always go faster when they're competing. It doesn't matter if they're our senior Olympic athletes or if they're our 5-year-olds. They love racing and they hate losing. At least I hope they do. In any case, take that into consideration. I have worked out, i.e. like the slab. I've worked them out in bathrooms, like literally, like an entire team, because there's no space in an entire resort. Or we've worked in churches. One of my fellows had the rugby team in the church down in Barbados. You do what you got to do with what you have. And the more prepared you are, you can do that. So making the program is part of it. And then, geez, what do we do about this? So if you know they're traveling to a certain place and they still have to keep a routine, then you create one that they can do wherever they are. Thanks, Dane. Okay, a whole bunch of blah, blah. But this was from essentially our physios. And all I want to point out is that how do we take their information and what do we do with it? If you go down a few, just go to line 2. Okay, here's our majority of people in this club that play hockey. If they're tight in their groins, their glute med is not firing, and they're having pain up in their front in their TFL and underneath their glute med and their piriformis. So what do? We activate the glute medius, and they don't get any more groin strain anymore. They don't have any more pain in the TFL, and they actually perform better. So for hockey players, they need to work on that, period. It's almost, I can look at the news every single day throughout the season, and I see that, and it's so frustrating because it's this simple. And any one of these brilliant practitioners will be able to tell you that. And now I'm brilliant because I know them and I've learned that. And so the next one underneath is what any running athlete has, which is you get hamstring pulls. Well, what happens? Why? It's because your glute max isn't firing. The timing's off. Your hamstring has to compensate. So usually it's from tightness in your psoas muscles, okay, and in the quad. So we stretch certain ones, we get that glute max firing, and guess what? That athlete doesn't have a hamstring injury. Hamstring injuries can sideline athletes for a month, a year, like an entire season. As a professional athlete, that might mean your career, depending on how old you are. So really simple, basic movements. Next one, please. So when do we do those things? We integrate them into the program. A lot of times we'll do them pre the program as part of the warm-up, or we'll do it post the program as part of the auxiliary exercises, but they're always doing something. I also have a daily list for some of my athletes that they would do on every day, especially if they're traveling, which is body weight things. So with the assessment info, we balance imbalances, we enhance the athlete's strengths, and we troubleshoot future potential injuries. A lot of times, therapists will just go and attack that weakness, but there's a problem there, is because they're at that level for a reason. So you can't ignore what they're good at. You try to maintain or improve what they're good at while you're bringing up what they're poor at. So, final note: communication is essential. I talked with Dave quite a bit with a couple of our teams. I met with our physiologist and our physio for one of my teams just yesterday. We talk every couple of weeks, depending on which team it is, but it really helps to be on an integrated support team. That's what the IST means. If you're not, you would become that as a coach, though, because you would integrate information, and ideally, in our minds, it's athlete-centered, meaning it's about the athlete, and if you're not talking to the athlete, you don't know if they're getting better or worse. Performance-wise, you can see it. The coach is the one that's supposed to deliver this information that we get, and the practitioners are the ones that can formulate the plan to offer to the coach, and the coach has final say. It's about the coach, right? And so if you guys are in here and you're coaches, you're probably the most important aspect of any one of your athletes or clients' future performance. So with your support, they can go miles, right? And I remember the first time with our Canada Games teams, those summer teams, which incidentally, working with some of those teams led us to the junior national teams, which led us to the senior national teams, and that's how we got it, because they were just getting changes. And these young guys and girls were coming up, and they were stars on the senior level, and they're like, well, what was going on? And we're like, well, it started from this. Yeah. So I just went off a tangent. But in any case, it's about the athlete and about the individual, and using the information from the staff that you have at hand the best you can.